So here I am again with my little red bird and fox talking to my friend the camera. I left off at a place where physically I improved dramatically after coming to Texas. But of course, as we all know, the story doesn't end there. There's one end is a new beginning. And I had already gotten into I'm going to call it complementary or integrative medicine through my process of going through my health issues. And so that's where my kind of path continued after that. And that's what I'm going to do, where I'm going to start talking about some different ideas. Now, before I get into it too much, I do want to say that integrative and complementary medicine is not an alternative to allopathic medicine. It never was, it never should be. And allopathic medicine shouldn't be an alternative to complementary or integrative medicine. I would love to see the two work hand in hand. Unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case, and it still doesn't continue to. I also want to say that I would love if medical doctors, when they didn't know what to do to help someone with chronic health issues, would just tell them that they didn't know, rather than suggest that there may be something psychological or some kind of problem within them. The other thing I would like to see is medical doctors accepting that they can't help everyone, the medical field acknowledging that they just don't have the answers when it comes to chronic health issues, so that people struggling with chronic health issues don't hear it's all in your head, you need to see a counselor, or it's you have FND, which is functional neurological disorder, a fancy term for it's all in your head. Finally, and this I'm getting off into a different area. I would love to see medicine acknowledge consciousness and energy. And I'll talk more about that, or maybe I'll say something about that now. I have had that thought for a long time, and I don't really know myself, even like how to fully articulate what that means. But I know that if we acknowledged consciousness and energy, then we could, I believe, make big bounds in our approach to many and all health related issues. We do know, or at least many of us know, that everything works together, unlike the traditional medical model where we separate all the pieces, just like on a car. But in saying that everything works together, there's the physical body, the emotions, the mental body, or the mental part of ourselves. I use the word body, and I'll explain that. Well, I'll explain that right now. If you haven't experienced this, and many of the people that come to see me have, and I have as well, when our emotions run extremely high, there is nothing we can do to stop that, or let me just use that word, to stop that. We don't have control over our emotions. We don't even have control over our mind, even though some people would say otherwise. What I mean by that is we can learn to respond to our emotions and to our thoughts, but we can't control them. I can learn to accept and allow my emotions, allow them to kind of run their course, to process them, if you will. But I can't just shut them off, just like I can't shut off my mind. I wish at times. Again, I can learn to redirect my thoughts to something else, I can meditate if my thoughts become erratic or start to kind of go in circles. I can question a thought or a belief or story that I'm telling myself. I'm using different words for a purpose, and but I can't stop my thoughts. I mean, our mind is like a computer. And then what else is beyond the mind? So we've got the body, the emotions, the mind, and spirit or consciousness or energy. On some level, some people would say everything is energy. And others would say, to go a little further with that, everything is consciousness. I'm not I'm not going to claim to be even a beginner when it comes to quantum physics, but I believe those things are true. Now, I'd like to talk about different complementary integrative treatments that I've used, that I've tried, maybe just to talk about them and share some ideas around them, but also, I guess, to give you an idea of what I've used to help myself to continue to heal from the place that I was when I first started getting better, that I've used as I've after getting well to kind of maintain my sense of health or wellness, and just some ideas around that, like what works and what doesn't work. Nothing necessarily specific, because I think everybody is different or every body is different. But there are certain, I think, guidelines that I found that are helpful. For instance, don't do more than one or two things at a time, and that goes for a lot of different things. So don't go to a chiropractor and an acupuncturist on the same day. Especially unless you've already established a rapport with both of them and know the effect that those kinds of therapies will have. That might be a little different. Same with supplements. Don't start by trying to take two or three different supplements all at once, or herbs or anything. Rather, especially when you're starting with something new, start with one thing at a time. Now, there are lots of things that one can include when it comes to complementary medicine. Everything from counseling to bodywork therapy, and by that, like different massage type techniques. But massage is such a broad term, and unfortunately, most people, when they think of massage, think of like Swedish massage. But there's so many other fascinating modalities within that many people aren't even aware of, like craniosacral therapy, myofascial release, Rolfing. I would throw in energy work, even though that's somewhat different, but let me just do that, like Reiki or energy balancing. And then, of course, I've already mentioned chiropractic. There's acupuncture. There's supplements. There's homeopathics, which I separate those two. There's herbs. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a number of these things, even though you might think, well, I know all about homeopathy. I can go to the health food store and get a homeopathic for like pollen or something like that. And yes, you can do that. There are like what we call modern homeopathics, which are low dose, which affect the body mostly, and can work for things like pollen allergies. But then there's also something called classical homeopathy, which is a whole different field altogether, where you find someone, and that someone tries to find a remedy that matches the symptoms that you're currently having: physical, emotional, mental symptoms. And the idea is that like treats like. And there's not a lot. of information. Well, there's a lot of information about that, but there's, again, a lot of people are unaware of that. There's not a lot of people that do that kind of work. And saying that, I forgot to mention naturopathy. So I'm just going to say a word about that. Naturopaths are basically, they consider themselves natural doctors in a way, and they are. And at the same time, there's, especially in the United States, there's a few different schools that provide naturopathic degrees of various hours. And so there's the regulation is still a little funny within that field. But I think in some places the regulation is a little more strict, like in Canada. And of course, you can look into, where, if you find, if you're looking for someone who is a naturopath, you can always ask them about their schooling or where they went to school or how many hours and that kind of thing. So again, there's a lot of different modalities out there, and I think, again, it's everybody has to kind of find what works for them. But if someone were to come and see me and ask me, what's the number one thing I would recommend to anybody across the board, I would have to say mindfulness and meditation. Again, and I'm not talking about these things specifically for people with chronic health issues, but for anybody. And why mindfulness and meditation? It's because, and that gets into the energy consciousness, kind of few words that I said. Mindfulness and meditation can help us to be present, right? There's lots of studies you can go online to show how that can be helpful to you. But I look at it on a very simple, in a very simple way, on a very simple level. And I sometimes explain it like this to my clients. When we feel something that's uncomfortable, whether it's physical or emotional, our tendency is to push away from it or to push it away. Nobody likes to feel anxious, depressed, sad, lonely, um, angry, even, or in pain. And we tend to try to kind of push it away. We tend to get tense. And mindfulness meditation helps us to learn to be present, to learn to, I like the word accept, right? Accept, which is different than being okay with it. We're never really going to be okay with feeling these uncomfortable feelings, but acceptance is different, right? When we feel accepted by someone else, we tend to feel warm and fuzzy inside. We tend to relax. We tend to breathe. We're not going to be able to make ourselves feel warm and fuzzy, but we can learn to relax and breathe in spite of what we're feeling. Oh, look, there, I'm feeling anxious, and I'm breathing and relaxing, and I'm letting it be okay. I'm feeling some tension in my shoulders, my neck, and I'm just letting those physical sensations be okay. I'm feeling tightness or pressure in my chest, and I'm letting that feeling be okay. I'm breathing and relaxing, right? Mindfulness, that's all it is. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? And breathe and relax, acceptance. I'm here. Meditation is just doing that for a longer period of time, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and with a focus, right? So I keep doing that, and actually that's enough. But if I want, I can focus on my breath or on my heart, knowing that as I do, that this doesn't stop. And at times I will go down some well-worn path, thought, story, right? And eventually, when I find myself down there, I'll be like, oh, wait, I'm meditating. And so I bring my mind back to the present, to this moment. And again, I'm breathing and relaxing, focusing on my breath or my heart. And again, my mind starts to go down some well worn old path or new path. And again, when I'm able, as I'm able, I bring my mind back, bring my attention back, and here I am again, present. So it's a great tool to, I believe, start to change some of those. What do they call that? Neuroplasticity. Change some of those pathways in our brain, because we're doing something different when we're present, right? We're aware of our thoughts, aware of our feelings, but we're not really engaging in them in the same way. We're also training our mind in a way to just, again, be aware. We're also, on a human level, learning to be more accepting of ourselves, our body, our feelings slash emotions, our thoughts. But on another level, and I think this is where we still don't have a lot of understanding. And I think this is an important one. Well, besides consciousness and energy and spirit and whatever, because as we are present, I believe we're more open also to present and quiet. We're more open to receive more awareness of ourselves, for lack of a better word. I know this is getting maybe a little out there, esoteric, but here's how I look at it. So when we're present, again, instead of pushing against the feelings and sensations, the things we don't like, we are, instead of like this, we are learning to relax and be like this. And in that kind of space, we give ourselves and all of who we are, we give those little whether it's a big emotion or little emotions or tension, whatever it is, we give it space, we give it room to kind of change, to expand. And in that expansive state, again, I believe healing can happen, does happen. Even if you don't believe any of that, in terms of the healing or consciousness or energy, even though, I mean, I think we all can agree that we are alive, so therefore there's energy within us that is measurable. But even if you don't believe the rest of it, there's still a level of acceptance and calm and peace that anybody can get from learning to be mindful, reminding themselves to be mindful throughout the day, which is usually what I suggest to people, and also meditating. I don't know if I want to say anything else about that, because what I can do is in another video, I'm going to show you a few exercises for those that may be interested, a few exercises that you can do while meditating that help to stimulate or strengthen the flow of certain energies in and around the body. So I'm not going to do that now, but I will do that another time, another video. And I think I'm just going to cut it off at this point. And thank you for whoever's out there watching this. I hope this is helpful to someone. And I will see you next time. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.